Hi team, welcome back to our Introduction to Ancient Greece Anchor Facts series of printables and mini lessons. Sadly, our final theme in this series is the decline and fall of Greece. It's the story of a collection of city-states that could never find a way to become a united country, even though they defeated the Persian Empire together. The case of Greece is a classic example of why at Knowable World we do not accept the common phrase, "The enemy of my enemy is my friend." We say instead, "The enemy of my enemy is my temporary ally." Whether it is the United States and Communist Russia fighting together against Germany in World War II, or Athens and Sparta fighting together against the Persians, having a common enemy does not make you friends. When the common enemy is defeated, the temporary allies cease to be allies and almost always become enemies themselves. The Spartans and Athenians, and each of their allies, fought each other in the Peloponnesian War until they were so exhausted that their neighbors from Macedonia came down and conquered them. The man who did this was the father of Alexander the Great, Philip of Macedon. But few people remember his name because his son is so much more famous. When Alexander took over a few short years after him, he decided to get revenge on Persia and formed an army of Greeks and Macedonians to invade the Persian Empire. In our Anchor Facts series of mini lessons and printables on ancient Egypt, we saw that Alexander marched his army all the way down to Egypt, defeating the Persians at every turn, and became the pharaoh of Egypt. This is why all the pharaohs of Egypt were Greek, or at least Macedonian Greek, after that, including Pharaoh Ptolemy V, for whom the Rosetta Stone was carved, and Cleopatra, the last of the pharaohs. But when Alexander reached Egypt, he was not done. He continued on his mission to destroy Persia, and he accomplished it. He conquered the entire Persian Empire, entering the city of Babylon itself with its famous hanging gardens, as depicted in this painting. Part of the reason for Alexander's success is that the Macedonians had perfected the art of ancient warfare, building on the success of the Spartans before them. They had developed a formation known as the Macedonian phalanx, which involved multiple layers of warriors working in unison with long spears, which, when combined into a single organized set, created a wall of death for any attacking enemy. Alexander was also a genius at using his cavalry, in other words, his warriors mounted on horseback. He would observe the battle as it progressed and determine where the key point was that would allow him the victory, and strike rapidly and with all available force in that one important location. Alexander was one of those rare military geniuses who could win a battle no matter the odds. After taking over Mesopotamia, he moved through the rest of the Persian Empire all the way to India. In this painting, we see the result of the Battle of the Hydaspes, where Alexander defeated the Indian ruler Porus. Although he won this battle, Alexander's conquests ended there. His own commanders refused to continue. They were already so far from home, they did not believe that such a large empire could possibly be controlled by the Macedonians and Greeks, who were too few. So Alexander returned to Babylon, the most spectacular city in his empire, and then strangely died at the age of 32. Was it poison? Some people think so, but we will never know. What we do know is that Alexander's quest to conquer the world was the last straw for ancient Greece because it spread the Greeks too thin. His empire broke up into multiple kingdoms with separate rulers, and even though some of them, like Egypt, lasted for centuries, the collapse of ancient Greece had begun. So was Alexander really the Great? The funny thing about that is that anyone who is called the Great is always important, but almost never good. Important means worthy of attention. If we want to understand history, we do need to study the people that were great, but what we usually find is that even though what they did was often amazing, it usually wasn't good. If the Greeks hadn't built such a big empire, they could have focused on building a smaller version of it that would have lasted. Maybe they would not have been conquered by the Romans. Maybe there would not even have been a Dark Ages. It's hard to imagine how much better history would have been if it weren't for Alexander the Great. In our next and final lesson, we will look at the final collapse of Greece, when, like everyone else around them, they were conquered by the Romans. See you then.